In today's video, I'll be ranking the operators in Delta Force for the operations mode specifically. Now keep in mind, these are my personal opinions of where I rank these operators, and they may differ from yours. From the already near 600 hours put into the game in about 2 months, and being a high ranked and competitive player, these are where I would rank them personally, and I'll leave the link down below for this template so you can make your own tier list. Now my microphone gain in this video will be a little bit high, but that will be adjusted accordingly for future videos. Anyways, let's get right into it. Instantly, top tier. I mean, you really can't go wrong with D-Wolf. I wouldn't say he's the best of top tier. He is definitely one of the best operators in the game right now. From his ultimate and his passive, those two combined are some of the best util in the entire game. His knuckle clusters are also nice to use as a controlling ability, and also it's nice to use it as to get finishes on people as well. His smoke is a nice addition. You more or less are playing him for his ultimate and his passive, just because of the mobility and where you're able to use it and how you're able to use it and get kills off of. So his ultimate is good in multiple ways. I mean, one being, if you're falling behind from your team, then you can use it to catch up. If they're in a fight and you need to catch up and you're falling behind, you can use it. Considering it's only a 90-second cooldown, it's literally one of the best ults in the entire game. You can also use it as a tool to reach other teams that are fighting in a distance, if you want to try and third party. Or 3, being it allows you to gain space. So say if you're entering the west wing of Zero Dam admin and you're coming through construction, you're coming through that first floor door, and there's all the way on east wing there's a fight. It allows you to gain space and be able to reach the sky bridges to get to that fight and to get to the other half of the admin building in such a short period of time. So even if your teammates can't catch up to you and say you're the only D-Wolf on the team, you're able to go from the first part of East Wing and all the way to Skybridge within like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So that's definitely where I would place D-Wolf. He's 100% top tier characters. Vyron is also one of the, I mean, what a surprise. The 2 assault characters are some of the best characters in the game for operations mode. Vyron is insane. Just starting off alone, his dash needs to be nerfed, in my opinion. His dash is ridiculous, considering you can go from, holding a doorway to dashing out 10 feet outside of it and getting a completely different off angle within half a second, and being able to have your gun ready is ridiculous. In my opinion, it needs to be nerfed in either a little bit of a longer cooldown or like less distance. I'm not sure how they're gonna be able to tweak that, but I definitely think his dash needs a bit of a nerf. On top of that, his dash will reset on a knock, so you could literally 1v3 an entire team just purely off of his dash alone, which isn't even his ultimate ability. So you get say you dash, you get the knock on the first guy, you have your dash back up, you dash again, you get the knock on the second guy, boom, you dash back up again, boom, you get the third guy. It's stupid. Vyron alone, just because of his dash, is amazing. And then on top of that, his ultimate is, I wouldn't say his ultimate's the best, but it's not the worst. It's good for kind of controlling corners or controlling angles, or get someone off an angle. Say if someone's holding like a corner pixel peek, you can shoot it at the ground near it and push them off for that temporary period of time. Or if one of your teammates gets knocked and your support teammate is instantly rezzing them, you can use it as kind of a gateway to pop it at the door so they can't push in, or pop it in an area to where the enemy team can't just run in and try and cancel the res. So that's a great mechanic as well, kind of control. The more that I think about it too, Vyron's whole kit is definitely, at first I thought it was selfish, like he's a selfish character with his dash and everything, and he doesn't have any smokes like D-Wolf has. But the more that I talk about it and the more that I think about it, he's actually a pretty good character all around, because his bombs kind of work the same way. Considering they're on, I think it's a 3.5 second fuse or 4 second fuse now, because he got nerfed recently. I think it might be 4 seconds. You can use it as another technique to kind of control and give you space and give you time. So if you get cracked around a corner, if you're by yourself or with or like I said, you're with your team and maybe someone gets knocked, you can use it as a technique to give you more time. So you could throw it down on the floor and place it. Realistically, nobody's going to try and run through it. If you try and run through it and you get a frag, but you're going to be 1 HP and you'll probably immediately get knocked. You're better off in operations playing your life more than getting a knock. Most likely, more than not, nobody's really going to run through his C4. So that's another kind of controlling technique, which is very useful. And then to finish it off, his passive is, it's more of just a nice thing to have, more or less, than being good. There is certain situations where you can use his passive for a reason and use it to purposely take a certain amount of damage where you would have taken fall damage to activate it in a fight to get that speed boost without having to use an ability, which is nice, but it is nice. His passive is mainly noticeable when you're using an ultimate, when you're using his Crouching Tiger ultimate and you get that speed boost immediately. That's when it is nice, because you get a knock off of it, then you could use that passive boost to be able to catch up to the knock and finish him. Yeah, that's where I would place Vyron in top tier next to D-Wolf. I would put him after D-Wolf just because, I don't know. For my opinion, I actually would prefer him over D-Wolf just because of the dash and the uses of the dash. There is countless places you can use the dash to get to spots that normal characters can't get to. So, me personally, I would put him over D-Wolf, but D-Wolf is probably a overall around better character. Next, we have Stinger. Stinger got buffed recently with his stim shot. It used to last 30 seconds passive heal, and now it's increased to 60, which is nice. That buff, keep in mind, is for only his teammates, not for himself. So if you stim shot yourself, it's 30 seconds, but if you stim shot your teammates, it lasts 60 seconds, which is, it's nice in situations where you're pre-stimming before fights. Although realistically, the HP regen, it's probably like 1 a second if I had to guess. You're not really gonna notice that in a fight, and you're probably not gonna be able to regen enough HP in that period of time while getting shot to kind of give you another bullet or to save you. Maybe very rare occasions it'll save you from a grenade or maybe a Luna shock dart or a Uluru Molly, you know, etc. But I would say he's a good mid-tier. In the very early testing of Delta Force, he used to be insane. I think his res was like a 4-second or 5-second res. It was absurd. And basically, if you didn't play him, you were throwing. But yeah, he's definitely got toned down a lot. I would say he's probably high mid-tier. Maybe, I mean, high mid-tier, maybe low high tier, considering he did get buffed with his passive heal. But I don't know, his smoke wall is nice, his smoke grenade is nice, but realistically his ultimate is kind of just a nice thing to have. It's not really like nothing crazy. Considering it's an ultimate, you're gonna want your character to have a good ultimate that does a lot of use, or even the rest of his kit in general. This character is in general good for if you're, you know, if you're trying to on a budget run almost. If you really want to be greedy with your own meds and you know, you want to just use his high-tech pistol to heal yourself. His passive honestly is pretty like useless, I almost want to say, because when you really think about it, when you're using his passive, it's because your teammate has already died once. He's at 80 HP, and instead of him full dying and you're resing him, he'll go from 80 HP to 100 HP, which in reality, yeah, it is nice, especially because he's a support character. He's a you know, quote unquote medic. He's more of a medic than toxic just because of his high tech pistol, but I would say his passive is definitely one of the worst, because it more or less is being used in a way where you shouldn't be in that position to start off with. Like if you're full resing your teammate, as long as he didn't get ratted, I mean, you're almost using his passive as kind of like an escape for losing your fights. I know a lot of the times you'll sometimes have fights where you get ratted, or sometimes you just have fights where it was just unlucky, but you pulled it off in the end and you did survive. Realistically, his passive is, I don't know, it's one of the worst. There's definitely a lot better, but he's a decent character. That's why I would put Stinger in mid tier. He's a good mid tier. Then we have Toxic. Oh, Toxic. She is, in my opinion, the best overall character in the entire game. Her passive alone carries her entire kit on her back. Her passive, let alone, is the best passive in the entire game. While she is up, as long as she is not knocked or full dead, I believe it allows you to use every consumable Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's like 40% faster. So that includes armor repair kits, survival kits, tourniquets, med kits, stims. I mean, it is the best passive in the entire game. And when Season 3 Starfall came out, I was genuinely so expecting for her passive to get nerfed. Her kit in general is very solid and good, but her passive carries her entire kit on her back. Her blind gas, a lot of people use this as a smoke, like as you should as a support character. It is a really great usage for a smoke and using it as a smoke. Although me personally, as a more of an aggressive player and a player that pushes fights, I actually tend to use her smoke in more of an offense tool more than a defense tool, because it is a blinding gas grenade, which means as an enemy walks into it, and they're not on your team, right? And an enemy walks into the smoke. Say this toxic is an enemy, and you throw a smoke down, and they walk through it, and they stand in it. For the first probably 1 feet or 2 feet after they walk out of the smoke, they can only see about a foot in front of them or 2 feet in front of them. So as long as you throw it in a specific spot to get the usage out of it, if someone wants to push through that, as long as you keep your distance from that smoke to the point where you know they literally can't see you because they're blind for about a second or two after exiting it, you literally can get a free kill. I love it. For adrenaline boost, I would say, I mean, it's not the worst, but it's not the best. In Season 3 Starfall, it did get a bit of a buff. The range got increased from, I think, 9 meters to 13.5 meters to giving it to your teammates, which is nice because it was kind of a pain to try and give it to your teammates because you had to get so close. They also, I think, increased the recoil reduction and the aim on sight speeds as well, depending on the tier that you have. So with how adrenaline boost works, when you use it after you get a kill like that, if say you use it and get a kill on another player, or get a knock, I believe actually works as well. When you get a knock on another player while it's active, it will slowly build up in stacks. I think it caps at 4. And that will further increase the buff of the adrenaline individually though. So if your teammate gets 3 knocks while the adrenaline is live, he'll have a stack of 3. Everybody has their separate stacks. So yeah, adrenaline boost is, I wouldn't say it's nothing crazy. It's nice to use if you have a lower handling gun and you have a slower ADS speed gun, but it's nothing crazy. Her ultimate, to finish it off, is very, very good. Honestly, almost too good at times. For some reason, her ultimate has a tendency to go through walls. So basically how the ultimate works is it goes forward for, I think, about 15, maybe 20 seconds, goes straight line, probably 15 seconds in a straight line. And it can kind of go around corners. So if you're in long hallways with doorways on each side or you know, other hallways, it will go straight and kind of fold out a little bit as it continues. So if you're right on a corner, it will hit you 100%. But sometimes it seems to bug out and go fully through walls when it shouldn't, which is a bit frustrating, but also makes her even better. But her ultimate is great. It will slowly lower your HP, as you can see, until you hold H, I believe is the default button, and it takes, I think, 3 seconds to pull out. Until you pull out this bug, it lowers your max HP to 50 until you take it out. It's good to either slow down the enemy or to use it as your advantage and be able to push off of it. You either can straight off push off of it after you get maybe 1 or 2 hit markers. You'll get a hit marker when your bugs hit the enemy, or it could also hit knocked players. Keep that in mind. So if you did get a knock and you send it down a hallway, keep in mind if you do get a hit marker, you most likely hit the knocked guy, and you know, it doesn't always mean you hit someone that is alive and standing up. You could use it more as a tool to kind of bait people into thinking that you're pushing, so they cancel pulling out the bug. So their HP, they cancel the animation and their HP keeps dwindling. And then you could hear the animation and the sound cues that they're trying to do it again, and then it's your perfect time to push because they're half health. So it's a great tool in offense and defense, gaining space, using it as a defense tool to kind of give your team more time to heal or armor, repair, you know, regroup. Toxic is, in my opinion, the best character in the entire game. By far, hands down. She needs to be nerfed in her passive, in my opinion. She's insane. Shepard, I almost want to put in the back of top tier because of his potential. realistically, I would say he's a very good high tier character. This kit ranges from his ultimate with his sonic paralysis, which is insane, goes through walls. His sonic trap, which is basically like a claymore or like a landmine, you could say. His frag grenade being on a 3-second fuse timer compared to Luna's 5-second. So it's almost more of an impact grenade because you're able to cook the nade to the point where it will blow up as soon as it goes near the enemy, so they have no time to react. So it's more of an impact grenade. Then you have his passive. Let's start with his passive. His passive, in my opinion, is pretty... I mean, it's okay. Basically, short story short, he takes less explosive damage, which is nice, but realistically, you're not really noticing, in my opinion. Nothing like insane, like you're gonna take half the damage from a nade than you normally would, but it is nice to have just against nades and you know, explosives. It is nice to have. Then you have his frag grenade. Like I said, it is literally like an impact grenade, like Tarkov, if you ever played Tarkov. Being on a 3-second fuse is crazy because usually when you hear the sound cue of pulling the pin on a grenade is pretty loud. So considering it's on a 3-second fuse compared to 5 seconds like Luna, you have very little time to react. And even though if you see it coming, you usually still get hit by it. And on top of that, grenades in this game can break your armor while it does HP damage at the same time. So, I mean, his grenade is amazing. And you have 2 of them. So his grenade is amazing. Then you have his trip mine. Oh boy. This thing does 40 damage flat, 40 true damage flat to the enemy, no matter what they're wearing, no matter what character they're playing. It is absolutely insane. It is, in my opinion, one of the best abilities in the entire game. It is absolutely ridiculous. Keep in mind, if you are against the Shepard, very slightly you'll hear beeping in the audio cues. And you can also shoot it. If you see it on the floor or see it on the wall, you could shoot it once and it'll break instantly. But if you walk near it, you will get hit for 40 true damage. Now keep in mind, if you have 2 traps on top of each other or 2 traps very next to each other, I believe there's a hidden cooldown of like maybe 3 to 5 seconds where they can't take another 40 damage. So you can't stack them. So your best bet is to use them as either an offensive tool by pushing and using it, considering the range of it is so crazy how far you can place it. If someone is, say, hiding in a corner that you know they have no escape, they have no other way out, or say if someone's in a compact room or a whole team's in a compact room, you can kind of throw it in there on the wall, on the ceiling, on the floor, and either manually activate it with, I believe the default is F, or let the enemy walk into the range itself. It's a faster activation time if you activate yourself, I believe. But yeah, I mean, his trap is ridiculous. Yeah, his traps are great for controlling, for offensive, for defensive. I mean, Jesus. I mean, Shepard's got a kid, I'll tell you what. Then you have his ultimate, Sonic Paralysis. So I see a lot of people use Shepard Sonic Paralysis by pressing it once. When you press the ultimate button once, it sends it forward and only does 1 pulse. If you hold down the ultimate button, which for me is the side button, if you hold down the ultimate button, whatever it is for you, you will end up placing it in the air like such in this video, and it will pulse 4 times instead of 1. In my opinion, more often than not, I would say 80% of the time, 90% of the time you're ulting, you're going to want to place it and use it to control an entire area because the radius is absurd. I would say the radius is probably the entire east wing of admin on Zero Dam. It's crazy. And then, like I said, if you press it once, it will go forward probably like 10 feet and then pulse once and then blow up. But you're definitely better off than using it as a placement technique and getting that slow. So when you get hit by it, if you're against one, you get slowed fire rates, slowed movement speed, I believe reduced hearing, and you get some distorted kind of vision that you're stunned by it. Yeah, Shepard's ult is also one of the best. I feel like I say this a lot, but that's just because the first 4 characters I have already gone through have been some of the best characters of the entire game. His ultimate is honestly, arguably one of the best ultimates in the game. It is absolutely ridiculous. That's why I'm going to put Shepard in high tier. 100%. Shepard is amazing. I would almost say he's bottom of top tier, but he's It's kind of situational at times with his traps and being able to use it and his ultimate depending on how your team plays. But he is very, very good, and yeah, top 4. 100% top 4. Now we have Uluru. I would say Uluru is a good low tier. In my opinion, he is one of the worst characters in the game. Let's start with his passive. Battle hardened. You have strong resistance to slowing effects from fractures and class gear. This meaning if you have, let's say, a broken leg, you will be slowed less. Or say your armor, if you're wearing gold armor, red armor, there's usually way greater penalties compared to like purple or blue or lower. The class gear means the armor that you're wearing. If your armor has a minus 8% movement speed, that is reduced significantly. I don't believe it's fully removed, but it is reduced. And then also on top of that, his passive is not really, I would say, a counter, but it is a very good tool against Shepard's ult because you don't get slowed nearly as enough, and the ultimate isn't nearly as strong on you. But his passive is okay. Nothing great, nothing crazy. Not bad necessarily, but nothing crazy. Now, his incendiary grenade. In my opinion, I would say this is the best thing in his entire kit. It is really, really great for throwing it on someone that is knocked because it does increase damage to players that are knocked on the ground. So if you throw an incendiary grenade on someone that's knocked, or maybe if they're up in a window or up in a position where you can't get the finish on them, it's great to kind of throw it up there. And if they sit in it for probably half a second, they're going to be fooled. So it's definitely a great util. I would say it's definitely the best in his kit, which is kind of sad because the rest of his kit isn't really that good. And even this incendiary grenade isn't really that crazy. Keep in mind, his incendiary grenade also is a counter to his own wall or other Uluru walls. As you can see, it will burn down the wall, I think, within like 2 seconds. So it's great for also countering other Ulurs at the same time. So just keep in mind, don't molly your own wall. If you need to remove your wall, you're also able to knife it. I believe it takes 2 knives to break each panel. So moving on to his wall, his quickset cover. Ah, man, I have a love-hate relationship with this thing. It could be so useful in this game, and it could have such great potential, but realistically, it's just not that good. Very rarely you can use it in certain situations to get really nice head glitches, but other than that, I would say the only other use for it is to kind of build a wall and place a wall so that maybe a down teammate or someone that's very low and there's nowhere else to run, say if you're in an open hallway, then you could kind of place it on the wall and sort of give them cover to run back, but realistically, it's not that useful. It takes a good bit of bullets to break if you don't knife it, but I would just let it disappear over time if you're fighting one, or don't even really worry about it. It's pretty useless. All right, moving on to his ultimate, loitering munition. I believe, in my opinion, just starting off, this needs a buff. So, if you're fighting Uluru, first of all, as soon as you hear his ultimate pop off, because it's very loud, if you open your map, you'll get this icon on your map in red that shows you where it is at the time. So, if you catch it as soon as the ultimate is popped, you can go to your map and literally find where that person shot it from and have that information, which is crazy. So it is a massive debuff just to shoot this ultimate in general, in my opinion. I would say the good things about this ult in operations mode, I would say this is more of a warfare character, but in operations mode, if you left click, it will hip fire shoot it and it just goes straight. And it's kind of nice if you shoot it down a hallway, say someone's like on the very end of a hallway and there's a wall, maybe the stairwell, say you're on, west wing of admin on 0 dam and you have that long hallway with the lever and there's a stairwell there. It's kind of nice if you hip fire down the hallway as kind of just like either to get peel damage or to give you time to push up, as whenever it blows up, it drops 4 bombs on the ground that have, I think, like a 2-second fuse. And if you sit in that, you will definitely get knocked and you will die. But his ultimate is definitely not the best, considering how easy it is to shoot down. If you try and use it from range, if you're sending it all the way up in the air, I would definitely not do that. Try and keep it low and maybe come up and behind cover and just try and use buildings as your advantage and the world around you as your advantage, the environment. Because like I said, 1 bullet will destroy his entire ultimate in the air and the bombs will just fall on the floor. So that's why I would put Uluru in low tier. He is definitely one of the worst characters in the game. Okay, so next we have Sineva. Hot take. I think he is in low tier besides Uluru just to start off, but he's better than Uluru. The only reason I say this, currently in the game right now, he is pretty good, and I would say he's probably better than Stinger in most cases. I would say he's high mid-tier. Although, in the near future, he is going to be getting nerfed pretty decently, and I can put the patch notes here. He's going to be getting pretty chunky nerfs putting onto his kit, with stamina reductions, slower speeds, louder noises of his ultimate coming on and off. Overall, he is generally more of a warfare character I feel like he was intended for. Same with Uluru. It's also kind of makes sense why they're both low tier on the operations tier list. Sineva is generally just more of a character that you play, it seems, if you're broke. Nobody seems to be bringing in guns when they play Sineva, because as soon as they have his ultimate up, they pop his shield before his nerf, because you run in almost full speed, I believe, and people just run around with the shield and use it as a weapon. Keep in mind, if you are fighting a Sineva, you can shoot his glass on the very top middle. It does take a good amount of bullets. I would say like 10 or 20 bullets of hitting his glass. I think it's about 10. Then his glass is broken, and then you can just headshot him. I would say the pros of Sineva, before his nerf, keep this in mind. I would say the pros of Sineva, he's very decent as of now as a character to gain space and kind of just be a nuisance. And to kind of keep the enemy looking at you more often than your teammates while your teammates kill the enemy team. He is, I would say, only useful in tight corridors and tight alleys, you know, and compact scenarios. If you bring him out in the open, you're probably going to die, depending on who you're fighting. I would say he's definitely a low tier. They are subject to change, the patch notes, but yeah. His ultimate is definitely pretty solid as of now. What you can do with his grapple, his second ability, is if you grapple and you turn your camera to the side, you can kind of move your glass in a certain scenario to where the person that you grappled can't necessarily shoot it if you're a good player on Sineva, which is nice, but also keep in mind, as you see, you can shoot his grapple. So overall, I would say the only thing in his kit generally getting use, just to say real quick, is going to be his passive and his ultimate. His grapple is definitely not the best. I believe it's on like a 20-second cooldown, 25-second cooldown. It's definitely not the best. It's not the worst. I would say the best use out of it is to pull your teammates. Use it more of a support character more than an offense. You can pull your teammates, and you can also pull loot boxes from far away. So that's a great mechanic, but I would definitely more use it as a support than an offense tool. Then you have his razor wire. Ah, man. His razor wire, in my opinion, needs a buff. It's nice. It slows the enemy, but also slows your own team, keep in mind. And it slightly damages the enemy, probably like 1 or 2 HP a second. Not that much. Not enough to make an impact. But keep in mind, your barbed wire can fully break in 3 knives. Also, I think explosives completely immediately delete it. But if you run up and knife it 3 times, it's completely gone. Sure, you could say, oh, I could place the razor wire and play off of it. And, you know, when someone tries to go knife it, then I'll be next to it to protect it, kind of thing. But I feel like that kind of defeats the whole purpose of the razor wire in general. I feel like the razor wire is kind of more of used as kind of a tool to give you more information on if someone is coming in a certain place. So you can place it in a hallway, or maybe in a doorway or an entrance or an exit, and place it there to see if you end up getting a hit marker. But yeah, I would say that's probably the best tool for his razor wire. It's a pretty mid ability, and I would say it kind of hurts your team more than the enemy team for the most part. His passive is honestly pretty great. More often than not, I'm accidentally shooting his shield. Basically, whenever his ultimate is not on and he turns around, as you see on his back, it is a completely bulletproof and indestructible barrier. It's a nice passive to have when you're not in his shield, but more often than not, you're gonna just be sitting in his shield the entire game as long as your team is alive. So it's a nice passive to have. It's nothing crazy, but it's a solid passive. That's why I would put Sineva as a good high low tier. Definitely better than Uluru, but right now, currently, as this video goes live, I would say he's, you know, probably 50-50, same with Stinger, both on mid tier. But after his nerf coming, he's probably gonna be good low tier. Now we have Luna. You see, considering this is my own tier list and considering she is my main, I'm gonna give her good high tier. I would put her top tier. I would say she's honestly arguably in the midst of the top tier. Maybe right about here in between D-Wolf and Vyron, just because of the amount of info that you can get from her kits. She is the best character in the entire game to use to get info in operations, and info is huge in operations. Knowing where teams are, knowing where teams are sitting, knowing if someone's knocked, knowing if someone's rezzing from a distance because you can see them being highlighted, leaning over, rezzing their teammate. It is the best info character in the entire game. Hackclaw, which I'll get to, is a good info character and a good recon character, but she is arguably not the best. I would say, for me personally, I would definitely put Luna up here. I would say she's right behind Toxic. Overall, for team play and in operations in a team of 3, I would say she's right behind Toxic and one of the best characters in the game. The recon arrow on her can be inconsistent in times, and sometimes it necessarily might not scan when you feel like it should have, but it is so insanely good if you know how to play her and you can kind of know the angles well and where to ricochet off a wall or down a hallway, or certain scenarios where kind of you just learn over time more and more on where the arrow should be sent and how much info you can get from one arrow. On top of that, her arrow, as you can see, is literally a pure counter to every smoke in the entire game. The first scan, no matter if you're moving or not, some people believe if you stand still you don't get scanned at all. That's not true. The first scan, no matter what, if you're in range of it, you will get scanned. I believe after about 4 seconds, you're going to get a notification on your screen that says scanning moving enemies and a white bar that goes from left to right. As soon as it goes near the end, you should stand still. Even if you're trying to run away, you should stand still for just that little half a second or 1 second, just so the enemy can't get that extra info on where you are. Man, her arrow is absolutely amazing, though. I mean, the amount of information you get, where people are sitting, where people are laying, where people are crouching, where people are rezzing, etc. It is an amazing information tool and recon tool. Next, you have her shock arrow, her volt arrow. This recently got buffed, surprisingly. I didn't expect her to get buffed at all during season 3. I thought she was perfect where she is. I thought she was perfectly balanced, in my opinion. But she actually ended up getting a buff with her shock arrow. I'm not sure if she needed it, but the buff was basically her shock arrow is a 5-second faster cooldown from 45 seconds to 40 seconds. It's a great tool to get people off of a corner, use it as a damage tool, use it as a controlling tool, use it as a tool to get more time. There is so many countless uses for her ability. Her shock arrow is right behind her recon arrow. It is an amazing ability for damage and also information. It ticks, I believe, 7 damage every about half a second or 1 second. I think it's 7 damage every second. So it's not a huge damage dealer, but it is a nice thing to kind of peel over time. Next, you have her frag grenade. Her frag grenade, compared to Shepard's, is on a 5-second cooldown, like I said, instead of Shepard's 3-second. So it kind of takes longer to kind of sit somewhere and cook it to use it as more of an impact grenade. I would say her grenade is nice to kind of gain space and use it as a frag grenade, use it as to get someone out of tight corners, etc. So yeah, her frag grenade is pretty simple. It's a frag. Yeah, she has 2 of them as well as Shepard. She has 2 frags. So yeah, her frag grenade is great. Next, you have her passive. Her passive is actually surprisingly way better than you would think. When you shoot an enemy as Luna, you highlight the enemy for, I think it's about half a second, through smokes, through walls, through anything. You will highlight the enemy across the entire map for you and your team. So it's nice if you're kind of spraying through a bush or spraying through a smoke and you end up hitting someone just one time. Then your teammate might be able to play on that and spray through the smoke right at where the character was highlighted and get the knock or get the kill. Her passive is amazing. Her entire kit in general is super solid, and like I said, my current main, and I think she is one of the best characters in the entire game. That's why I would put Luna at right behind Toxic on top tier. 100%, I think she is the second best character in the entire game. Now you have Hackclaw. I would say Hackclaw is a good mid-tier above Stinger. The reason why I say this is because, in my opinion, her kit in general isn't the best. I would say it's more of kind of like the ratty character and the ratty playstyle, with her passive being Silent Step, which increases your move speed while crouch walking, and I believe making the crouch walk noise almost muted. I believe you almost have no footstep audio while you are slow walking slow crouch walking as Luna, which is insane. Her data knife, it's not the best. Keep in mind the armor will stop this knife, not negate the damage, but it will negate most of the damage. It's more of a tool used for kind of just being a nuisance. It's not the best. It's not the worst. If you throw it on the ground or throw it on the wall and an enemy is within range of it, any device ability in the game, with being, you know, Luna's recon arrow, Luna's shock arrow, Shepard's ultimate, Shepard's mines, anything that kind of is like electrical, you're not going to be able to use for, I think, about 10 seconds. So it's pretty decent to kind of use it as like a silence per se, but it's not the best. It's not the worst. Her flash is, in my opinion, the best thing in her entire kit. This flash will blind you, will full blind you from literally like 40 feet away, 50 feet away. If you're looking at it, you will be blinded the same amount as if you were right next to it looking at it. It is insane, and in my opinion, her kit needs to be tweaked. I think her flash needs to be nerfed, and the rest of her kit maybe tweaked around, maybe buffed, maybe changed entirely. But her flash is very good. I would say her flash is the best in her kit. Keep in mind, the enemy can shoot this down in one bullet, just like Shepard's mines or Shepard's ultimate. It can be shot down in one bullet. Keep that in mind when you're using it. To finish it off, you have her ultimate. Her ultimate is honestly just not the best. When you use it, it is nice in close quarters and in buildings like admin, as you see here. When you use it, you'll have lines directed towards the enemy. If the line is red, the enemy is very close to you. If it's yellow, they're kind of like a decent range from you. And if they're white, they're very far away from you. Also, I believe you can throw her flash on this line and it will kind of follow the line towards the enemy until the flash expires. So that's kind of a nice little feature that the flash run has that not everybody knows about. But overall, her ultimate's not the best. It's nice to use it as kind of an information tool to find people hiding somewhere, or you could also use it as a technique to kind of see what the enemies are wearing in terms of armor and what characters they're wearing. When you use it, keep in mind it scans in front of you, I believe in 180 degrees directly in front of you, or it might be a little bit less than that, but it's a cone in front of you, and there's two pulses. So the first pulse is as soon as you use it, and the second pulse is about halfway through. I think it's a little bit more halfway through is your second pulse. And those two pulses determine on what characters you've scanned. So the first scan on her ultimate is the only scan that will tell you the armor tier that the enemies are wearing. When you scan, the armor tiers aren't in terms of gold, purple, blue, or whatever. It's in terms of numbers. So if it ever says 6, that means it's red. 5 means it's gold. 4 means it's purple. 3 means it's blue, and so on and so on. So keep that in mind when you scan and you see a 6, that means they have red armor, so be careful. So yeah, that's where I would put Hackclaw. I would say she's a good mid tier. I would say she's better than Stinger. But overall, realistically, if you want to try and be meta for information, I would definitely say Luna just absolutely clears her entire kit. And that's where I would place everybody on my tier list. Like I said, this is subject to change. This is for Season 3 Starfall. This is subject to change. This is my opinions. Your opinions might not agree with this. This is coming from a player that is judging these based off of fighting good players and good gear. And also just from playtime in general. I have played almost every one of these characters for a good period of time, and I have a good understanding of how they work, and I believe this is where everybody sees fit. If you made it this far, I greatly appreciate you watching this video, and I plan on making an Operations Weapon tier list in the near future as well. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing. Comment buh.